This is Ali Abdaal, a Cambridge medicine graduate and renowned educator. In one of his most insightful courses, he breaks down the exact study techniques used by the top-performing students at the University of Cambridge. Ali recalls his early days at university, where the level of competition was intense, and every student was exceptionally smart. The one thing that made a real difference between students ranking at the very top and those slightly below wasn't intelligence, it was how they used their time and the methods they used to study. That realization sparked a deep obsession in him, to dive into every book, paper, and scientific source on learning techniques, cognitive psychology, and memory strategies. He started experimenting, testing, and documenting what worked and what didn't. In this video, we'll explore several of the methods he studied, some of which will be backed by citations from peer-reviewed research. But right at the beginning, he shares a bold statement. The techniques you think are most effective, the ones you're probably using right now, are actually draining your time and doing almost nothing for your learning. That's the harsh truth most students never realize. So in the rest of this video, we're going to review 5 of the most common techniques students use. 3 of them are strategies you're likely doing but shouldn't, and 2 are techniques you're probably not using but should. Let's start with the first one, rereading. What is rereading? Simply put, it's when you read a chapter or section once and then go back and read the exact same thing again, hoping to understand it better. Sounds familiar, right? Ali explains that this is a hallmark habit among struggling students. You often hear people proudly say, "I went over this topic 7 times." But in reality, that repetition is a sign of ineffective learning. Or as Ali bluntly puts it, this is something beginners do when they don't yet know how real learning works. Why is rereading such a bad idea? Because learning only happens when your brain is engaged, when it's challenged. That mental effort is what creates retention. True learning begins when you feel confused, stuck, and even a little frustrated. Like when you're learning a new instrument and struggling to place your fingers correctly, or when you're studying grammar in a new language and can't make sense of the sentence structure. Those painful moments when your brain is working hard to overcome difficulty, that's where real learning happens. But when you reread, your brain is coasting. It recognizes the words and ideas, so it burns zero energy to process or recall them. There's no challenge, no effort, and therefore no learning. Ali even cites a 2013 meta-analysis by Professor Dunlosky, a major figure in educational psychology. The study evaluated the effectiveness of various learning strategies and ranked rereading as a low-utility technique. In other words, when you consider the time it takes versus the actual learning outcome, it's just not worth it. And that brings us to the second technique, highlighting. Ali confesses he used to be obsessed with highlighters. His books were full of fluorescent lines, yellow, orange, pink, you name it. He thought it helped him concentrate and made him feel productive. From a distance, it looked like he had really mastered the material. But again, the science tells a different story. Highlighting might help with attention, but it doesn't lead to deeper understanding. It's a passive task. You think you've learned something just because it's highlighted, but if someone asked you to explain that concept or apply it, you'd probably struggle. It gives a false sense of mastery, and that's dangerous. And then there's the third technique, summarizing. We've all seen it or done it ourselves. Sticky notes, colorful tabs, and neatly written summaries stuck all over textbooks. Looks impressive, right? But the effectiveness? Not so much. Ali explains that summarizing can sometimes be useful, but only when done with precision, coherence, and clarity, and even then, research shows it's still a low-efficiency method. Takes too much time for too little gain. He gives examples from his Cambridge classmates who would walk into study halls with beautiful binders full of summaries, tabs, and color-coded notes, but still complained about underperforming in exams. Why? Because they spent too much time summarizing, and not enough time retrieving or practicing the information in challenging ways. And this is exactly where we start to understand the difference between. So, those first three techniques we just discussed, rereading, highlighting, and summarizing, are some of the most widely used study habits among students. But here's the interesting part. According to scientific research, these are the very strategies you should avoid. They're simply not effective enough to justify the time and effort. Now let's talk about the two techniques that actually do work. These are the common traits shared by top-performing Cambridge students, especially those who consistently ranked among the highest in their cohort. They knew how to use their time wisely, and they leaned heavily on methods backed by evidence. The first and arguably most powerful method is something called active recall. Active recall, or active retrieval, is hands down one of the most effective learning strategies available. According to Ali Abdaal, discovering this technique completely transformed his academic life. He describes attending a university seminar in his second year where active recall was introduced in detail. The moment he understood its power, he was stunned. From that day forward, he says, I divided my academic experience into before and after active recall. His grades skyrocketed. He realized how much time he'd been wasting on passive techniques that felt productive but led to shallow understanding. So, what is active recall? In simple terms, it's the process of forcing your brain to retrieve information, to pull knowledge out, not just put it in. Every time you make an effort to remember something, you strengthen the neural pathways involved in that memory. Let's say you read a paragraph from a textbook. Instead of rereading it, you close the book and ask yourself, what did I just read? Or, can I explain that concept in my own words? You're pulling the information from your mind, not reviewing it passively. This mental effort is what actually drives real learning. Ali shares several practical ways to implement active recall. 1. The spider diagram. After reading a topic, you create a mind map with the core idea at the center. Then you branch out the subtopics like a web. This helps you visualize the structure of what you learned and makes recall much easier. 2. Paragraph by paragraph recall. After each paragraph, close the book and try to mentally reconstruct what the author was saying. Where do you feel gaps? Where do you hesitate? That friction is the sign of learning happening. 3. The Cornell note-taking system. Once you finish reading, write down questions related to the content. The more questions you can generate and answer from memory, the better you'll understand and retain the topic. 4. The Feynman technique. If you want to test how well you've truly understood something, try explaining it to a child or someone unfamiliar with the subject. If you can't explain it simply, you probably don't understand it deeply enough. Ali also recommends the use of a powerful app called Anki, which blends active recall with another high-impact technique, spaced repetition. This is the second powerful method used by top students. What is spaced repetition? It's built on the concept of the forgetting curve, the idea that we lose information over time unless we actively review it. But instead of cramming, spaced repetition encourages you to revisit the material at increasingly spaced intervals. Every time you successfully recall something after some delay, you send a signal to your brain. This information matters, store it deeper. Over time, that curve flattens. You forget less, retain more, and save a huge amount of time. Ali explains that when spaced repetition is combined with active recall, you create the most efficient learning cycle possible. One of the best tools for this is Anki, a free app that uses flashcards with built-in spaced repetition logic. Every time you answer a question on a flashcard, Anki asks you how difficult it was, easy, moderate, or hard. Based on your answer, it decides when to show you that card again, maybe in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or even several days later. This way, your brain is constantly being pushed to retrieve information right before it would have been forgotten. It's an incredibly smart, adaptive system. Ali says that Anki was like a best friend to Cambridge students who consistently performed well. He also shares another personal system, Ali's magical spreadsheet. This is a simple method he built using Google Sheets to track what he was studying. Each topic, like verb tenses in English, gets its own category, and after each review session he logs the date, rates his performance and color codes the difficulty. Green means easy recall, red means he struggled. Over time he identifies weak spots and focuses revision where it's actually needed. Together, these systems, active recall and spaced repetition, create a feedback loop for deep learning and long-term retention. The students who used these consistently, Ali says, were the ones who scored the highest in exams, not the ones who made colorful summaries.